You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. When we talk about university-industry partnerships, we're often focused on technology readiness, licensing terms, and IP strategy. But there's another side that's just as important: how companies themselves structure, negotiate, and manage external research collaborations at scale. Today's conversation gives us that perspective. I'm joined by Yogesh Sharma, Global Head of External Research Collaboration at Novartis, one of the world's leading biopharmaceutical companies. Yogesh has deep experience in term sheet negotiations, licensing, IP management, alliance governance, research agreements, and all of the structures that make or break partnerships between academic research and corporate R&D. Yogesh, welcome. I'm really excited to have you here on the air.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk to you on this very interesting topic for us, obviously. Yeah.
Yes, it's a great topic. And I thought maybe the best place to start today is, Novartis is a global company. And given its size, how do you define external research collaboration and what does it all encompass?
Yeah, so I think it can be different for different companies. So I'm going to speak what we are doing at Novartis. So I think external collaboration for us, for our team, means external collaboration on the research side, not on the clinical side, because we are part of the biomedical research team. So when I speak of external collaboration, they are in the context of early stage research collaborations, not clinical trials. So that's very distinct. And within that early stage, of course, early stage at pharma may be very different from early stage in academia. What's early for us may be late for academic institutions. So I understand the semantics here. We can understand it differently. If I could keep going, I think early stage could be just like, and for the most part, it is, Lisa, it's really about learning more about disease biology. We like to work with academic research investigators about learning about the disease biology that can give us ideas about targeting new mechanisms in cells for making drugs. So that's where we kind of start. I would say that's our bread and butter. Besides finding new drugs, we are of course looking at kind of collaborations which are around new technologies which can enable kind of speeding up the disease drug finding process for us.
Yeah, so it sounds like really collaboration and partnerships with academic institutions really are ways for you to discover new research areas to go to develop new therapeutics.
Yeah, so I think we know we want to treat cancer, for example, but there are lots of different types of cancer, lots of different cell types that are involved in that, and very interesting, intricate biology. I think what I've heard at Novartis recently from our current president, Fiona Marshall here, is it's like, as smart as we are, as many resources as we have at Novartis, still we are only a tiny part of the whole research ecosystem. Okay? So she really believes in, and I think we carry that mantle, is innovation anywhere. And that's kind of our job, is to find interesting innovation happening anywhere, especially in academia for our team.
Yeah, that's really exciting because I think sometimes companies get kind of stuck in what they've always done. So to have that kind of philosophy is really neat. So when you begin your conversations then with academic institutions, talk to me a little bit about where you often see a lot of alignment between Novartis and academic institutions, and then where you may not see alignment or you tend to see a lot of friction.
Yeah, so I think, maybe just taking a step back, I think I'll tell you about my background. I spent about almost 15 years in the academic side, in the technology transfer offices, in mostly in Boston area. And I think we have built our team here with people who have that kind of experience. And I think so that what that has allowed us to do is we kind of understand the pain points from both sides.
Yep. Gotcha.
And so that gets us going on the right foot for the most part. I think I I wish I could say that there are no more friction points, Lisa, but but there still are. But the fact that I think we have been in those shoes, I think it helps us. Because every situation is different, and I understand our partners on the other side of the table, they have their own challenges, So yeah, I think having said that, I think I guess I'm just going to some of the recent examples that I'm dealing with. So there's a recency bias in my mind, as you can imagine. I mean, I've seen in a couple of recent large-scale research collaborations that I've been working on with my colleagues here. Is like the university somehow they think they want to have the same ability as a sponsor like Novartis to use the results for whatever purposes, and so I call it reciprocity of in use of results, and I think the common sense solution to this is that we need to use the results for more, our research programs, as well as sometimes regulatory filings. We don't always need that, but I think we need to have that flexibilities. But when university says we want to be able to, or our PI wants to be able to use the results for anything, then that doesn't work. I think so. Again, the common sense solution there is, which works, I would say 8 out of 10 times, is you can use the results for your research purposes, your internal research purposes, not academic research purposes. And I think, and publication, of course, is the holy grail for academics. We understand that. We will never stop it. I know that doesn't work. These are not service collaborations. These are service-based relationships. These are academic, mutual kind of collaborative arrangements where we know they have to publish. But maybe a recency bias in my mind, but I think I've seen that a couple of times, and it puzzles me that I can imagine, Lisa, what I've heard anecdotally is, I think some of these PIs, especially in a number of these, I'm using air quotes here, elite institutions, they have other ideas, right? They want to start companies on the side. They are under pressure to do that. So I'm not even saying that it's all made up. And I think that's where they run into problems, that the TLO is not talking to their PIs about those things. Like, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. Smith, you want to start a company, but you are working with Novartis on this project. You can't really take Novartis results and transfer them into your company, So that's just, I know it's a somewhat hypothetical example, but not that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues associated with that. And I can imagine it gets pretty difficult at that point. So what if you make these conversations go a little bit more smoothly, besides the fact that you've been in a tech transfer office yourself?
Yeah, I think just being totally transparent with them and kind of talking through that why it would create problem not just for us, but for them also. How are they going to manage those conflicts? And that's where I think kind of my experience or our experience in the tech transfer offices helps, because I have seen those conflicts blow up in from the academic side, So, and I said, you don't want your name to be in a publication or in a lawsuit, and that's where I think it helps. Sometimes they have to kind of go through the, chain of command and get those approvals. But I think if the PI is really keen on working with us, I mean, we are such a strong partner for the most part that I think they want to work with us. I think we find a solution. So yeah, so that's on this point. The other point, obviously, is the age-old issue of non-exclusive royalty-free licensing. I think universities typically don't want to give that nerve for non-exclusive for all purposes because, and I understand it, we don't always ask for it, to be honest with you, because we understand in most of our basic research agreements, we don't ask for it. We have convinced our lawyers, believe it or not, internally.
You were able to do that. That's impressive. How did you manage to achieve that?
Yeah, again, we explained to them that it's going to drag out because everybody has limited finite time. So it's in the name of efficiency. I think we have been able to convince. But again, we make a kind of a reasonable case with them. Look, it does not really. We don't need it in this case. But the case is where we are actually providing our important clinical drugs. or important pipeline compounds. That's where we are going to need it. And I think then I cannot argue with our internal attorneys. I don't want to, because I think it just makes perfect sense that we should not be giving compounds, those important compounds, as well as funding, and then creating potentially FTOs issues for us.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that becomes a big risk.
That's right. Yeah.
So given all that, are there certain approaches that you have found there at Novartis that work really well when it comes to structuring agreements that protect both the innovation as well as enable research productivity?
Yeah, I think in this context, you mean productivity in the sense of these negotiations, or
just allowing the research to move along quickly and with as few hiccups as possible?
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest, I think this is a little bit philosophical, no more so much contracting issue, is having a good relationship with the PI, between up the PI and our scientists. And I think if they have good communication with each other, they trust each other. I've seen some of those collaboration go very well, even the intricate, complicated one, and where we even managed to give them some really interesting assets from our side. But if they kind of understand the sensitivities on our side, and we figure out a solution, kind of almost sometime in advance, but sometime as we go along, because the trust is there. So I think a contract can go only so far. We can put, you are an attorney. I think I'm right in assuming that, Lisa.
Yes.
You understand a contract can help you so much.
Only so far. Yep.
Only so far. It's the people that we are dealing with. I think if they trust each other, we can always amend something, right? I mean, if both sides come to an agreement, we can always amend it. So that's what I tell our folks on our side, right? If for whatever reason, early stage research, the results don't go as planned, I would say half the time they don't, because that's what science is, then we can pivot, and as long as you have a strong relationship on the other side, I think we can make it work.
Yeah, and as you well know, universities and pharma operate at different speeds, have different pressures. And I want to go back to some things that you mentioned before, because you mentioned differences around publication. There are also sometimes differences around confidentiality, decision cycles, and internal review processes. You hear a lot of times people in industry complain about the review cycle within academia. So how do you navigate all those differences there at Novartis?
Yeah, I think, and I totally sympathize with our academic colleagues. I think, especially in a big company like, our company, I mean, we become bureaucratic, and it is, I think, justified. I'll be honest with you, because the stakes are high, and so I think we don't want to make a huge mistake. But again, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think if the relationship is good, if a PI picks up the phone, or my TLO counterpart picks up the phone and calls us, look, this paper really has to go out in 2 weeks. Can you make it happen? I think we make it happen 9 out of 10 times. But having said that, I think it is frustrating, because a lot of time, and I think I hope we are getting better, at least on our side. Because sometimes the turnover happens, right? The emails or the papers, they end up in places. The scientist that was the scientific champion in our company is no longer there. Or the business person. I mean, fortunately, someone like me has been here for a while now. I've been at Novartis for 10 years, so they can always find me. So I think I can probably help out in terms of. It's just that it has to go through the approval of our IP attorneys. That's a must before any paper can go out. And so there is really no way around it, I think. But if you give us like 30 days, I think we make it work more often than not. So I guess since we are talking about IP, Lisa, a couple of other examples, again, maybe goes to my recency bias. I've seen it in a couple of agreements come up, is the issue of background IP. It's such a fascinating topic, right? And I think because we want to work with PIs who already have some interesting ideas in a certain field of research. That's why our scientists want to work with them. And sometimes they already have some important IP filed on, which is good. I think if they have something and we want to kind of extend that line of research by funding some research programs in that area, I think that the arrangement that I have offered to universities, and I think it works most of the time is, and this is again, going back to my background in academic TLO, I understand one of the pressure points for my academic counterparts is the patent cost, and
It's a huge issue. Being a patent attorney myself, it's a challenge for universities.
yeah. So I think if let's say if Novartis wants to fund a research program and there is a background IP that we are concerned about, we don't know because there are so many variables. We won't know how valuable the background IP is or even the foreground IP is going to be until the work is done, really, right? So what we offer universities, and I think, like I said, it works, I think, most of the time, is that if we want you to hold that background IP for us, I think we will take an option to that, at least for the term of the research agreement, and we'll pay for your ongoing patent costs. So that pressure is off of you. And because what we don't want to happen is, as you understand very well, Lisa, we don't want them to kind of take that background IP somewhere else now that Novartis has added value to that.
Exactly.
And what I have seen happen, unfortunately, as soon as Novartis actually funds a research program, even expresses interest in funding a research program, that background IP suddenly becomes very valuable.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more expensive. Yeah.
And not only that, it just a lot of other people become very interested in it. It's just because, Novartis is interested in it, because of our reputation, right? So, and then the PIs, they start getting the ideas that, well, maybe I could start a company on my own. I don't need Novartis. Yeah. So, it doesn't, that hasn't happened, but I think I've seen people getting ideas after that. So, but I think the fair arrangement is we will give you a certain amount of money to improve this IP, background IP, but we'll help you with any ongoing patent costs, which could be substantial, as you know, Lisa, depending on the stage of prosecution.
Yeah, depending on the stage of prosecution and how broadly it's filed. If it's filed, 15, 20, 30 countries, the costs are extreme. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to move on and ask you a little bit about AI, platform science, and data ecosystems, because it's all over the place right now. We're hearing a lot about it. So I'm curious how all these new capabilities are shaping the way that people like you at Novartis are approaching external collaborations.
So I think there are maybe at least a couple of layers to that question, maybe more, as to what areas of I guess our operations, including research, and we are deploying AI, and I think it's a big part. AI is we are a company at the forefront of drug discovery. So I'm 100% certain that Novartis scientists they're using AI capabilities in chemistry, drug discovery, chemistry, target finding, data analysis for all purposes, and it's just happening, and it's also coming along nicely in research collaborations as well, because there is great research happening in academia in this field. So actually, maybe just a plug for a recent collaboration. It was in today's LinkedIn, actually announced by our president, is Helmholtz University in Japan. Sorry, in Germany, I should say, where our scientists are going to be collaborating with a professor there. It's a large scale collaboration, and it's very interesting. It took us a while to make that work. I mean, to kind of sort out and unfortunately, I can't really get into the issue of a lot of this, but I can talk about at least in general terms, because that's not the only AI collaboration we have. That's one of the more recent ones. And I think, one of the issues, just beyond generic AI IP issues that come up in our research collaboration, is the AI tools that may come out of that collab. Well, I guess maybe before even I talk about AI tools, is kind of what kind of data, what's the source of the data that's being used by both sides, let's say by our collaborator, right? Or do they have existing tools they are going to be improving as a part of the collaboration? Then what rights are they able to give to us? What strengths does it come with, right? Because again, I'm by no means any expert in this field, but at least you may know more, that there are several types of open source licenses out there under which the data is available. So I think we have good IP attorneys who are kind of getting better at analyzing all that. So we make a checklist of the data all the data sources, I should say, that will be used by doing the collaboration. And we get a sign off from our folks here that and from the university as well, because they don't want to create a conflict for them and promise something to us and then not be able to deliver it. So we kind of, as a part of the diligence, we look at every data source that would be used in the collaboration, and then making sure that there are no strings as a part of the open source license that will force us to release anything that comes out of it. And if it does force, then we are kind of getting into it with our eyes wide open. That's what we would have to do, and we will be okay with it. If it looks like that's not the case, then we say no to certain data sets that could be used in the collaboration.
Have you ever not been able to verify the source of the data and then it kind of like terminated the project, and the project never got off the ground?
I think it never got off the ground once or twice. But I think most of the time, I think your hunch is correct. We find solutions.
Yeah. I think the universities are being really careful about making sure that they're documenting the source of data. So I think that is something they're doing a really great job with.
Yeah, and I think I think we have our friends in MIT and Stanford, and a lot of these tech savvy institutions who have been using open source licenses for a long time, even before AI rush. And I think I talked to them because they are just across the street from us in Cambridge. And we have gotten some good insights from them in kind of how to evaluate. And like you said, they don't want to get in trouble, and we don't want them to get in trouble or kind of for the collaboration to not go anywhere, So,
if you could offer one piece of advice to tech transfer professionals before they enter into negotiations with a global partner such as Novartis, what would that be?
I guess the most important piece of advice is they should be on the same page with their PI, because at times there are parallel conversations happening between our scientists and their scientists, and it's not a no-go from our side. I think we encourage people from our side. I think because I think our scientists, they understand that they're not supposed to how to handle confidential information. But I hate to say this, I think the university investigators are sometimes not that savvy. Not all of them, obviously. I'm generalizing here. Some of them are super savvy, so that's kind of part of the challenge. But I think if my counterparts can work with their PI as early as possible as they're developing the research plan, and I know they're busy, because I used to be one of them. But I think for an important collaboration, I think if they can help them develop the research plan, and again, Lisa, just like we just talked about, and go through this diligence of, what each side is kind of bringing to the table, and make sure there are no strings attached that could create problems for either side. I would say that's the most important piece of advice. And then, of course, the funding, etc. I think if we are, there is really almost never any haggling on funding. I'll be honest with you. I think people, for the most part, I think if the universities can justify the quality of work and that's where a very good research plan comes into play, right? These are the deliverables, these are the milestones, and a good budget just falls out of that, So, yeah, I think I would say that's the most important thing.
Now, is there one thing you wish your academic partners understood about what happens internally at Novartis after you sign a deal?
Yeah, I think, and it can be different. There is no uniform issue or hurdle that comes into play. But for the most part, they need to understand, I think, that a collaboration for us is important. But for our scientific, especially when we are, providing significant amount of funding. And so we are going to keep an eye on it. And I think there are project managers along with our scientists who work with them, and alliance managers, either or that too. For important projects, we have alliance managers working with them. And I think they kind of go through the, once the agreement is signed, yes, they start a kickoff meeting, internally, and then as well as with the PI, And if they're not getting response from the PI for whatever reason, that's not a good sign. I think that if early on they are facing problems in getting the time from the investigator. So my suggestion to, again, my counterparts would be, please stay engaged. Just because the agreement is signed especially for larger collaboration, multi-million-dollar collaborations, please stay engaged with the PIs. And as a matter of fact, I think we like them to give us a point of contact outside of the PI's lab that we can reach out to for these alliance-related issues.
Do you ever set up like quarterly meetings or biannual meetings between the tech transfer office, the PI, and yourself? I'm sure you must do that to help keep engagement.
Yeah. I think, like I said, for larger collaborations we do, but not for the smaller ones. I think. Sometimes some collaborations, they kind of very well written, and our scientists do most of the quote unquote alliance management for those. They come to us only if there are problems.
There you go. Well, Yogesh, this has been great talking to you about the mechanics of research collaboration. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. Take care.
Yogesh, thank you for digging into the real mechanics of research collaboration from the industry side. If this episode gave you a new perspective on partnership strategy, share it with a colleague. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Autumn on the Air.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at autm.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.